Good morning.
How you doing?
No complaints.
Nothing to complain about? Normally you have something to complain
Yeah,
about.
well, actually, I do. I usually have some. Have you been to the movies lately?
No, I was thinking that the other day because I really wanted to see that Leonardo DiCaprio film.
The Moon one?
And, and I just I don't even think about going to the movies anymore until something is. I might go. Courtney recommended The Hunger Games.
They're good. It's a good movie.
Is
but you
it?
know what? The first complaint is 25 minutes of previews.
Oh, that's the
I
best.
love that.
I hate it.
I
Are
can't
you
stand
kidding?
people who say that. Like, why
I
don't
mean,
you?
my popcorn's gone, my candy's gone. It's all gone.
Well, that's a
I haven't
you
even
problem.
started the movie yet, and then the movies go for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
The new theater in the Seaport, Mike, Alamo, no previews.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's
I
what
do
they're
like the
known
previews.
for.
Mike, you need to bring you some food in so you don't run out of it. That's the key. My
Oh,
mother
you know what?
always used to
I
stash
think that's
the food.
I think that's illegal.
No, it ain't.
Yes, it is.
Here's what I do.
I don't think you're supposed to be bringing your own food in.
Life hack. This is a life hack for you, Mike. Seeing that maybe you're a movie guy. I'm a movie guy. You're a little bit older, so you're taking a lot of those afternoon movies that are cheap. Go to a movie
Get the
theater.
hell out of here,
Listen.
Wiggy.
No, I'm serious. Go to a
You
movie.
started this, Greg. This age thing.
Go to a movie that's connected to a mall, and then you go to the food court, and they can't kick you out because the movie theater is part of the mall. That's what I do. I go to the one in Danvers. Is that Liberty Tree Mall?
Mike is still impressed when he finds a theater that is showing the talkies. That's how old
boy.
he is. By the way,
That's Charlie Chaplin.
speaking of feeling old, I've yet to say happy birthday to Larry Bird, who turned 67 years old today.
Wow.
Does that,
Larry Joe.
that makes me feel really old. I don't know about you, Mike.
Yeah, it does. I mean, he was. It was. You know, we've been so lucky to have some great athletes in the town, right?
Yeah.
Like Orr and Brady and Bird and you name it.
Bergeron.
Pedro Martinez. You know, it's great stuff. It's a great sports town, and thinking of him as 67 is just, well, it is what it is.
Well, I think it's a good thing, but whatever slump Brad Marchand may have been in, looks like he's over that, which is good.
You know what? A natural hat trick is an unusual thing, and to accomplish that is great for him. It just doesn't seem to have the same quite kind of jump. I don't know why. I mean, he's still Brad Marchand occasionally, but I think we talked about it. I like him when he's a little bit more ornery than he's been lately. And I think they need that. I think their team, you know, do you guys have an identity of this team when you think of it, about it?
That's a great question.
I don't know what it is. It's balanced, but it's not. It's got good goaltending.
What would you say? What would you say it was last year? Was it goaltending? Would you say last season the identity of the team was how great both of those goaltenders played regular season wise when they got?
I don't know. I thought it was balanced, but it was also a really good offensive team. It was a puck possession team, and it was tough to get it away from them. I mean, I can remember games from last year where that just seemed like there were 7-8 passes in a row and flawless, and they controlled the play. But I don't see that, and I didn't expect to see that with the loss of two really crafty centermen. But they still have the fewest losses in the league, and that it's pretty remarkable beginning to their season considering their losses. And you know, there's not much to complain about. Their penalty killing, still a top penalty killing team in the league. They could be a little bit better on the power play, but you know, we can't all be spoiled like we were last year when they barely lost any games.
I was going to say identity-wise, it's like young blood, which we haven't maybe had recently for the Bruins. It's been the same guys over and over again, and I know right now they're looking at Boston's 20 under 25 list for most talented athletes, and 5 of the finalists are Bruins players right now. And I think that's something that Bruins fans could be really confident in and excited about moving forward.
I think that's a good point. I think they're, you know, certainly Swayman is in that category of a, you know, young goaltender coming along and with a great future. You've got Charlie McAvoy, who's young and going to be there for a long time. And Potra, I don't know where he's going to wind up, but he certainly looks like he has some ability to be a quality centerman in the league for a long time. So, yeah, I think it's a team that when you're young like that, it's maybe it's harder to find an identity. But I do wish I do wish they had a little more bite to their game. They seem a little softer than I'd like them to be, and somehow they have to find that. I think Montgomery has brought that up, that he thinks that team has not been as physical or as committed enough to physical play as they need to be. So I'm looking for more of that, and also I'm looking for him not to blow leads in the last minute.
Well, Mike, if that's the case, right, and we look at this Bruins team this year and we try to compare them to last year and try to learn from last year, if they understood what they were last year and how good they played and then weren't able to get it done in the postseason, do they use this year to say, okay, we might not be as good, but we're just as good in the sense as our record and the way that we're playing? It's super important that we make sure that we make a big splash this year at the trade deadline, because we're right in position to accomplish what we weren't able to do last year.
I think that when you're in the position like they're in right now, there's no pressure on them to make a deal because the holes aren't so visible. But last year they made a couple of great trades at the deadline, and it somehow failed to materialize into a playoff win. Are they a little gun shy after that, or are they just going to keep on wheeling and dealing and hope that this time it works out? I think as the season goes on, and we're only 20 games in, as the season moves on, I think maybe the general manager will be able to identify a little bit more clearly what needs he might have, and there'll be injuries along the way that he may have to face. I don't think there'll be a need to have a flurry of activity at the deadline unless something changes. And right now, things are going pretty well for them. They had that little stumble. They got back on the horse and started to win some games. And, their schedule isn't that difficult ahead in the next month or so. But it is going to be interesting to see if they could find a way to keep this level of production, which is impressive.
What do you make of what's going on in Calgary with Noah Hannafin? And they seem to want to trade him, but it sounds like he wants to play for the Boston Bruins.
Be a nice addition. I don't know how they handle that financially, and they're not certainly Calgary's not going to give him away. No doubt, a local boy would like to come back home and play in front of the hometown fans. I think that'd be a great way for him to finish off his career. But I don't think the player in this situation has that much leverage unless he's going to become an unrestricted free agent in the very near future. He can't force anything to any particular team. But it certainly would be a nice boost for the Boston Bruins defense if they could pick up a guy like Hannafin. And, by the way, when we're talking about defensemen, I've been a little bit concerned about Hampus Lindholm. He's just not the same player that he was when they picked him up a year ago. I remember him being very visible, incredibly adept at moving the puck and incredibly positionally sound, and it just doesn't seem as visible or as much of a factor. And that is something that would concern me and maybe get me thinking about Hannafin.
Mike,
Scheim has some. What's your?
So Mike, Noah Hannafin is in the last year of his deal. Would you give up something like if you're the Bruins, you'd absolutely give something up for that quote unquote rental, but in hopes that he would re-sign, right?
Yeah, if certainly that's the way to approach it with an upcoming. I thought he had more years than that, but I guess you're right. He's unrestricted. That does give him a little bit more leverage, but it does put the Bruins in a position where they have to tidy things up on the cap end, and it's a hard cap. It's one of the only sport really that has a hard cap. So they're going to have to look at that and the assets that they give up it's not going to be cheap for a player like that who can put up some big minutes and be a productive player and a good defenseman. But it's an interesting take. They don't need it. It's not like, oh my God, we got to have another defenseman right now. Where they're playing pretty well in all phases of the game with the defenseman that they have, and he doesn't address a need that we just talked about, and that's physicality. And I'd like to see them find somebody in that department, whether it's a forward or a defenseman.
He addresses that Boston College need for Courtney and for Curtis.
Yes.
What I was going to say is you bring up the salary cap. A projected rise for next season is $87.7 million.
Yeah, where was that when I was around? Jeez.
do like I do, Mike. I always blame my mother. She couldn't have waited to have me 10 years later or something.
I know I could have waited to have you, Wiggy.
Yeah, well, that'd have been fine. Could have had me in this era of football. I think the same thing. Why couldn't I played in this money era of football? Mike, I'd like to kind of get in the mind of the coaches. And when you have a team like this, the Bruins, that, they were spectacular last year. It looks like, they're not on the same pace, but they're going to be a playoff team. Do you ever get caught in the sense of, I know it's a long way away, but do you ever get caught in like the sense of, as a coach, start to looking and saying, all right, what are we if the playoffs were to start tomorrow, and kind of looking ahead into maybe what we need to be as a team, especially a playoff team?
I think you're always trying to figure out the best way to use the people that you have in your lineup. And I talked about them not being particularly physical. You're not going to turn people into being physical players, but you can get it more of a team approach to being in the way, get in the way, find a way to disrupt plays. And usually that starts with the legs and checking. So if you're not going to be overly physical, the least you can do is find a way to get there, disrupt plays with your positioning and with your legs. And then I think you become a more difficult team to play against. In the playoffs, you're not going to ask people to run through the wall all the time, but you're going to ask them to skate through the wall. They've got to get there. They've got to get to be in position and in an intelligent fashion. And that's what the Bruins should be looking at right now. Make sure that if they don't have the right kind of guy to be, and I guess that's kind of where Lucic fell in. He was going to be the physical player. He was going to be sort of a spark plug kind of a guy. They don't have that ability right now, but they can still get it done with I think, the approach of get your legs there, and that'll take care of the rest. And finish when you can, but I don't think they have this group. This group is never going to be the big bad Bruins or the lunch pail AC. It's just not built that way, and it's a different era.
Mike Milbury, thank you. Well, was it Hunger Games that you went to see?
I did. I also saw Napoleon, which was also like 2.5 hours. I mean, I needed a nap.
You'd think Napoleon would be a shorter movie.
Yeah, well.
All right.
Anyway, we'll talk to you next week, I guess. But
all right.
Did you watch the debate yesterday? Anybody?
I did not watch the debate. Like I'll figure out who I'm voting for when the election gets here.
I just got to get that Ramaswamy the hell out of here.
Why don't you like him? I like him.
He was
wise
a dink
ass.
last night.
He was a dink again.
I thought he was kind of funny.
No, well, that's your sense of humor. Goodbye.
What bothered you when he told Chris Christie to go
Yeah,
eat,
I mean,
go
he
eat a
first
meal?
he's-
You don't like the fat shaming.
Well, no, I don't, and I didn't like him, picking on Nikki Haley's daughter, who was on TikTok or something. And he's just trying to like raise his profile a little bit, and I'd like to lower it.
All right, Mike Milbury, thank you very much.
See ya.
There he is.